Here we have an example paragraph from a report that incorporates two quotations. Within this paragraph, we have two sets of quotation marks, indicating that everything that is in blue is taken word for word from the original. In other words, if we went to the original source, we would find that the blue portion is directly copied. However, merely putting quotation marks around directly quoted material is not enough to cite the information properly. Our reader also needs to know where this information is taken from. In order to provide this information, we must include a parenthetical citation. For scholarly journal articles, books, and printed newspapers and magazines, there are three pieces of information that must be provided within the paragraph: the author, the year of publication, and the page number from which the information comes. There are two ways that this information can be presented within a paragraph. In order to help us compare these ways, let's just examine the sentences that have quotations. Within this first sentence, we can see that the composer of the report has indicated the original author's name, the year of publication, and the page number for the source from which the quotation comes. After the author and year of publication, we should put 2 commas. All of this information is provided within a parentheses at the end of the sentence. If this source had 2 authors, we would include both of the author's last names within the parenthetical citation, separated by an ampersand. If the source has 3 or more authors, we would include the first author's last name followed by ETAL, as is shown here. This merely means "and others" in Latin. Finally, it is important to note the location of the parenthetical citation. It comes after the closing quotes, but before the period. This positioning is very logical when one considers the sentence structure. As this citation is not part of the original wording of the quote, we cannot put it within the quotation marks. Also, since the citation is part of this sentence, it must come before the period. Before we move on to the second way to incorporate a parenthetical citation, remember that one of the purposes of the parenthetical citation is to direct us to the appropriate source in our references page. If we examine the sources in our references page, which are in alphabetical order, we should find a source by Chavatar. This link between the in-text citation and the references page allows the reader to find the original source, go to page 8, and see if this quotation really exists. Now let's compare the parenthetical citation in this first example to our second example. Like the first sentence, our second sentence also presents the author's name, the year of publication, and the page number from which the quotation comes. However, some of this information has changed its location and is no longer at the end of the sentence. The reason for this shift is that this second example uses the author's name directly within the sentence. In the first example, the author's name was not mentioned until the parenthetical citation. When we mention the author's name directly within the sentence, our presentation of parenthetical information changes. After the author's name, we will immediately indicate the year of publication in parentheses. Then, at the very end of the sentence, we will indicate the page numbers from which the quotation comes. As far as indicating multiple authors directly within the sentence, the same rules apply with one minor exception. When we have 3 or more authors, we include et al. After the first author's last name. If we have 2 authors, we will include both last names, but instead of an ampersand, we will use the word and. In conclusion, regardless of whether we use the author's name directly within the sentence, or save it for the parenthetical citation, we must provide this specific set of information, author name, year of publication, and page number, for any information that is coming from a scholarly journal article, book, or printed newspaper or magazine. Now let's examine a paragraph that implements a paraphrase. Here we have a paragraph that is implementing a paraphrase. We know this because of the incorporation of an in-text citation near the end of the paragraph. We also know that the information preceding this in-text citation is a paraphrase because quotation marks are not used. However, there is a special consideration that needs to be taken when incorporating paraphrases within paragraphs. When incorporating quotations within paragraphs, it is easy to identify the information that is being cited. It is the information between the quotation marks. However, when incorporating a paraphrase into a paragraph, we do not have quotation marks to indicate where the information begins and ends. Within this paragraph, we know that the paraphrase ends at the parenthetical citation. However, we do not know how far back this citation is referencing. It could be the previous sentence, the previous 2 sentences, or even the previous 3 sentences. Without an initial signal to the reader that indicates where the paraphrase begins, it is impossible to know how far back the citation goes. Therefore, when incorporating paraphrases within paragraphs, we must provide an initial signal to the reader that indicates where the paraphrase begins. The easiest way to do this is by including the author's name directly within the sentence. By including the author's name within the sentence, the reader then knows that everything from Johnson to page 92 is a paraphrase of Johnson's ideas. Along with changing the wording and sentence structure of the original, when creating paraphrases, we must clearly indicate the beginning and ending of the paraphrase when we incorporate it within a paragraph. Before concluding this lecture, let's quickly look at how to cite a website that does not have an author or page numbers within a parenthetical citation. When citing websites that do not have authors or page numbers, there are a few elements to keep in mind. First, we must remember that the parenthetical citation is a link to the references page and must align with the first piece of information for that source as it is indicated in the references page. In other words, if this is our reference page citation, the parenthetical citation must align with the first piece of information within the citation, which is the title. Please note that when we do not have an author, we do not need to include the entire title of the source within the parenthetical citation. We only need to include 3 or 4 words, just enough to indicate the source within the references page. Also, please note that within the parenthetical citation, the title of the web page is in italics, as it is in the references page. However, within the parenthetical citation, we will capitalize the web page title normally. This is a different formatting than what is used in the references page. Next, for this particular web page, no date is given. Therefore, we will include ND within the parenthetical citation. The last piece of information that we will need to provide is the paragraph from which the information comes. Since web pages do not have page numbers, we must include the paragraph number from which the information comes. This helps our reader identify more clearly where he or she can find the information that we have cited. Finally, when we are presenting paraphrases, we still must indicate the beginning of the paraphrase, even if we do not have an author. The easiest way to do this is to mention the website's name directly within the sentence. By providing the website's name within the sentence, we clearly indicate that everything from Pheasants Forever to the parenthetical citation is paraphrased.